Hey guys, so get ready. This video is going to be a long one. And a lot of you may not be interested in this video. But I had no ideas on what to film right now. And so I thought I would film my testimony. So if you don't want to hear this, just click away. It's not going to stop me from putting it up. If you are one of those people that stumble upon this video and leave a hate comment, just know it's not going to affect me in any way. It's something that I've shared many times, and I'm going to share again. This time with basically, I guess, the whole world. So yeah, let's get started because it's a long one. Like I said, if you don't want to watch it, just click away. It's not going to hurt my feelings any. If you do want to hear it, I'm going to condense it as much as I can. But it's kind of a long story, so get yourself some tea, Coke, some kind of beverage, and a snack, and get ready. Basically, my testimony starts when I was like 11. Actually, it might have been 12. I went to it used to be called the Choir of the Fire. It was a youth conference, a Christian conference. They had Christian leaders and speakers and bands and stuff like that. And I had gone to one when I was 10, I think. And I loved it. And so I had to go again to this one. And the first night there was a speaker, and I couldn't even tell you who it was. The night was a blur to me because I was in tears the whole night. And the only thing I remember was the sermon or the speech he was given was about how God uses everybody. And it's not just the perfect people. It's the sinners, it's the weak, it's the sick. He uses everybody. And I lost it. I was crying the whole night. And nobody could stop me. And I didn't know what was wrong. And I just kept saying, I had lost my grandma about 3 or 4 months before that. So I just kept saying that it was because, maybe it was because my grandma was gone. But I had no idea why I was crying at that time. I just could not stop. It kept coming and coming and coming. But I found out later why. When I was 12, now I know for sure I was 12. It was around May, our church was talking about going on a mission trip. And we were going to help the victims of the El Nino hurricanes and stuff that hit the East Coast around North Carolina. And I wanted to go so bad. And I signed up. And around this time, I had been drinking a ton of water. And we didn't really think anything of it. When growing up, I was always a chubby kid. I had been tested for diabetes and thyroid and all that kind of stuff, and nothing ever came back wrong. Then when I got older, they said pre-diabetic, but I wasn't qualified as a diabetic. Sometimes my numbers were okay, and so they didn't qualify or didn't classify me as a diabetic. So anyway, signed up for this mission trip, and our youth pastor could not go. He had to stay behind because his wife was pregnant and she was due any day. And so they were trying to find another leader, and no one would step up, so our preacher, our actual pastor, went. And we drove down to North Carolina. It was a straight through trip, and all the way down there I was feeling sick and I was throwing up. And my pastor took me aside and he said, you know what, let's call your mom and dad It's probably just nerves. Let's call them so you can hear their voice. So I talked to my dad, and he told me, go stick it out, see if you enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, I'll come and pick you up. And I was like, okay. So we got to the school that we were going to stay at. And that night, I threw up everywhere. It was bad. And by late that night, I couldn't even stand up. By the next morning, I was crawling to the bathroom. And they found there was a couple kids walking by the room. They told me I had to stay behind the next morning because I wasn't well enough to go. And the kids in my youth group went ahead and left. And so did my leader. And I was laying on the ground, and I realized I couldn't feel my legs. And I started crying for help. And 2 kids walked by. I'm sorry if I tear up during this. It's hard. Sometimes hard for me to talk about. 2 other kids walked by, and they went and got help. And they came back up, and one of the other youth leaders that went with us on the trip came back to the school, and she said they were going to take me to the hospital. And I was like, no, please don't. I was worried that we didn't have the insurance because my mom wasn't really working at the time, and I wasn't sure that my dad had insurance. But yeah, we're concerned about that. But anyway, they said, no, you're going. And the next thing I knew, there were EMTs putting me onto a stretcher. He had to take me, carrying me down flights of stairs because I couldn't walk, and I was oblivious. At this point, I don't remember anything. I do remember arriving at the hospital, and at that hospital, they said, nope, she's way too sick. We cannot take care of her at all. And that's the last thing I remember. From there, the rest of the story's kind of been told to me until I tell you. So I was flown in a Flight for Life helicopter to a different hospital, at which point my parents were notified. And when I got to the second hospital, I went into a cardiac arrest. I had a temperature of, it was 108. I have burn marks on my back because they were trying to get rid of the fever with a water mat, and they didn't have time to remove it when they reacted with the paddles. So I do have burn marks on my back from when they had to shock me. My blood sugar at that time was up past 1200. So they had to shock me for about 30 minutes. It was almost a shock per minute. And they finally brought me back. At which point, my dad was on his way, and the pastor called him and told him, my dad at this point thought he was bringing me home. And then he got this phone call that said that we almost lost her. And he started driving about 120 miles an hour. Luckily, it was late at night, and by the grace of God, no cops were out to stop him. I'm sure they would have given him an escort if they were out. But he was driving. My mom was contacted that she would be on the next flight out, and that people from the church would later bring Katie and Travis out if things ended up okay. A couple hours later, I had a second cardiac arrest. Again, 30 minutes of shocks. And again, they were able to bring me back. And the doctors told my parents when they got there that the only reason they did it was so that they could say goodbye to me. They didn't want me to go on while they were not there. And so they went into the room to see me. Of course, I was on life support. I was on the ventilator. And they told me they each grabbed one of my hands and told me they were there. And then I squeezed her hand, and that's when they knew everything was going to be okay. I was in a diabetic coma for a few days. I don't remember much of anything. When I did wake up, the first question that I wrote down on a piece of paper was, am I going to die? And the doctors kept telling me, no, don't ever ask that again. No, you're not. Miraculously, they thought I would be a mentally challenged child after everything I'd gone through. And I wasn't. I was spelling words that I had never spelled correctly in my life. And I did have nerve damage from my lower back down. I kept saying I wanted to get out of the hospital bed and I wanted to get in a chair. And everybody kept saying, you just can't do it, you can't do it. And I didn't understand why. Because at this point I had no idea what had happened to me. And so, anyway, I woke up after a few days of being in the diabetic coma. And I still had the breathing tube down my throat because I couldn't breathe on my own. And I still had the feeding tube down like my nose dash throat. And a few days later, this all went down on Father's Day, believe it or not. The whole first set of things. So then, for a while, like I said, I had the breathing tube. I couldn't do anything. It was touchy here and there. Some nights were terrible. Some nights were okay. My parents and brother and sister, who were really young at the time, my brother was like a baby. He was only like 1, maybe. And my sister was really young. And she had to step up and take care of Travis. And she to this day, well, every time something goes wrong, she's not happy. But anyway, they stayed in the Ronald McDonald House, so I'll forever be grateful to Ronald McDonald Corporation. So anyway, July 4th, I coughed the breathing tube up. And I kept saying I wanted it out. And they kept saying, you're not ready, you're not ready. Well, I coughed. And I pointed to my throat, and they're like, my dad yelled at me. He's like, Kayla, it can't come out. And I was like, no. Like, I had a panic look on my face. And he's like, somebody needs to get in here. And they looked, and I had coughed it up. And no one had ever coughed a breathing tube up before. And so they left it out. I was able, I had to prove myself, and they kept it out. They did try to remove the feeding tube, but I got nauseous and really sick, so they had to put it back in, and that was the worst day of my life. Well, not really, but, it was terrible. My dad had to hold me down, and he said he'll never forget the look on my face, and that was just terrible. Anyway, that was July 4th, and then on July 10th, they flew me back to Indiana, because all this was still in North Carolina. They flew me back to Indiana, and I went to Riley's Children's Hospital. I was there for a few weeks. The kidneys had failed at that time, so they were teaching us how to do dialysis at home. And all of a sudden, kidneys kicked in. They started working. So one by one, everything just started kicking in. So they transferred me over to Methodist Hospital in Indy. And I went through tons of physical therapy. I was fit with braces for my legs so that I could learn how to walk again. And right before my birthday, I got to go home. And I wore those braces for almost a year. Then we moved to Indiana to get away from the snow. And I was determined to learn to walk without them. And I did, and I started walking without them. I've never, a lot of my sensation has come back. My lower back still has some nerve damage in it. Like when you touch it, it just feels not like I can feel a sensation. Like if you scratch on it, I can feel you. It's just, I don't know how to explain it. I can feel hot and cold in my legs. A lot of it's come back. They said what it is the nerves on top came back closer to the skin, but the nerves that are deeper by your muscles and your bones never were able to come back. So that was the main part of the testimony. So then, for years, I was healthy. I've had, there was a couple incidences where I got a blood infection, and then they tried to put me on an insulin pump, and I just couldn't get the hang of it, and so my blood sugar went out of whack. And then, hold on, I gotta think, 3 Aprils ago, I was constantly sick. It was to the point where I was, I didn't know it, but my stomach hurt, all the time. I was going to the bathroom all the time. I couldn't keep any food in. I couldn't process any food. No matter what I ate, it automatically came right back out or up. And my blood pressure would drop drastically, and then, I had to be rushed to the hospital. The very first time, I was put on a ventilator, and once again, my brother and sister, my family was told, come say goodbye to her. She's not going to make it. So now, anytime I go in the hospital, that's when my sister is she's prepared herself. Because usually it's not a good thing when I'm in the hospital. So yeah, I got off of that. They did all kinds of tests. They thought, it was C. diff, and it wasn't C. diff. They tested for all these antibodies, and they weren't any of that. So I got sent home. About 2 weeks later, it happened again. Same thing. At least, I kept getting used to the signs of when my blood pressure dropped. I could tell I was starting to feel dizzy, so they would, I would take it, and yep, we would rush to the hospital. Finally, one time, I looked at my sister, I said, it was in the middle of the day, I said, I'm getting dizzy, we need to go. And she flew. She sped, she flew through red lights. Bless her heart, she's the most careful driver, and she got me to the hospital. They had to take me to a bigger hospital in our South Bend area, and there was a doctor who was kind of sitting there waiting for us because it was kind of later in the evening, and he said, has anyone ever tested you for celiac disease? And you're like, nope. And he started the testing, and that was that. It proved to be it, and he was the only doctor that could figure that out, and I don't know why no one else did, but he did, so that was that one. And that's when I started on the gluten-free diet, and it's been so much better. I mean, there's been days that I accidentally get gluten if we're out to eat, or that's something I gotta take my chance every time we go out to eat. So I don't like to eat out much anymore. I know there's a lot of places that are really gluten-free, and safe, but there's still chances, at those places, so it's kind of iffy for me to eat out. But now, if I get glutened, I just take an ibuprofen to help the inflammation, because I can feel it now. My stomach will start to hurt, I'll start to get cramps. Before, I was so sick, and my body was so glutened that it didn't know. It didn't feel any of that. But like I said, now I get cramps, it starts to hurt. Yeah, I start to go to the bathroom, yeah, that kind of stuff. So I'll take an ibuprofen, an Imodium, or a Pepto-Bismol if I'm feeling nauseous too. And within a couple of hours it settles down. Then again, this past, no, not this past April, but last April, we got back from a trip, and with my sister, and again, I just couldn't pee. And so we went to the hospital, and they tried to figure things out, couldn't figure them out. And finally they said, all right, we can't figure out why anything's going wrong. Your kidney numbers are great, so we're going to start you on dialysis. And lo and behold, my best friend, who is now a nurse, she was studying to become a nurse, kept saying, they just need to put you on dialysis. They just need to put you on dialysis. And no one would ever do it because my kidney numbers were just fine. And that's what I needed. My kidneys were failing. They were failing. And they had failed at that point. And no one was doing anything about it because when they did blood work, the kidney numbers were fine. And they started me on dialysis. I had been on dialysis for a year now. July 4th was a year for me. This catheter, let's see, wrong side, this catheter has lasted a year. Fingers crossed that it can last until the eye is healed. And then I'll get a graft in my leg to do it. But yeah, so far, that's my testimony. My siblings and I kind of joked the other day coming home from the eye doctor. He said that, when he said that my right eye is going to be near perfect vision and my left eye is going to be pretty darn good for what it's been through. My sister and my brother and I just started joking that God thought he could do better for some reason. Apparently what he gave me the first time around he didn't think was good enough. And so, he gave me a new shot at life and gave me new eyes. I mean, the retinas are reattached. I got, the new, lenses on the top. And, if I ever get a transplant, I'll get the new kidneys. And like my doctor says, when I get the transplant for the kidneys, when that time comes around, he wants to give me a pancreas. So I'll get a new pancreas at that time. So it'll be a whole new body. But yeah, it's been a struggle since I was 12. And I'm, a little less 27 days, I'll be 27. So it's been a short, not really a short life, but it's been a lot packed into this time span, And I won't change it for anything. That's what my motto is. It is what it is. You just gotta go through it. If you can't change it, then you just gotta deal with it. And I've learned that God chooses you to go through what you go through. And that brings me back to that conference. That's why I was crying that whole time. Because God was speaking to me and I didn't know it, telling me to get ready because he was going to use me. And I didn't know at the time. I didn't know that was him talking to me. And, it was. So, yeah. I hope you guys somewhat enjoyed this video. I just really wanted to share it. I hope it inspires some people. If you stuck through this whole thing, thank you. I'm sorry it was so long. I think I'm just going to kind of upload it because I don't want to edit anything out. So, yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll get some more lively, happy videos up soon. Like I said, didn't have anything to film, and I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to share what I've gone through and what God has done in my life and how he's brought me through it. So thank you guys for watching. I love all you guys. Thank you to all my new subscribers. I'm gaining them not very quickly, but quickly. And if you subscribe to me, I subscribe back. So just hit the subscribe button, and then when I check my account page, whatever it's called, dashboard I think it's called, I'll subscribe back to you. And yeah, like I said, I hope you guys like this. Thanks for watching, and bye.